In those areas where we stretch ourselves and we put out big goals and we've got some things we want to accomplish, there's going to be stress that gets brought along because of those situations we're putting ourselves into. So I don't, like I said, I don't want to call it good stress, but there's stress that gets caused by good things as we're growing and we're flexing muscles that we've never used before, and we're learning and we're failing. I mean, like, how many times in business have you failed? And it's stressful to fail. It's also where we learn a ton. My biggest learnings in Orange Ball, and I guarantee you're going to say this about Octeliant, the biggest things we've learned in our businesses come from failure. And failure is freaking stressful. It's hard. But there's some good things that can come out of stress if we manage it the right way. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Grit Meets Growth podcast, where we bring you inspiration and insights focused on getting uncomfortable, making things happen, and creating a magnetic life. If you enjoy the messages you're hearing here, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of the podcast. With that, let's get after it. Morning, man.
Looking sharp, dude.
They're right back at you.
No t-shirts today.
No, we're decked out.
Must mean we're getting business done.
Got stuff to do, man. Stuff to do. How's your week going?
It's been a week of stress, man. It's been some stressful times this week for a multitude of reasons. Actually crushed me pretty hard the last couple of days. Put me right on my ass. And that's the me being humble and honest. You know, it goes back to the same thing. We started this podcast. We're just two guys trying to figure life out, man. Talking about our experiences and sharing them with others so that, hopefully we all gain some insight and able to get through these things better and faster and easier together than we could alone.
Just admitting out loud, it's been a stressful 2 weeks and it put me on my ass. Being able to say that out loud, the transparency in that is not something you hear often. It's way easier to hide it, and it's way easier to pretend like we all have our crap together and we don't experience it. But the reality of it is we all have stress. We all experience it. And so, yeah.
And we all experience it at different times, right? There is this thing called the universe, man, and it operates the way it does, and we're a part of it. We're a cog in that mix, and it's going to hit us all differently at different times. I think, as I mentioned, I think the key is really to shorten the duration of those stressful feelings. For me, the last few days, it's really about relying and leaning into my circle, bouncing ideas, letting people know how I'm feeling, what I'm feeling, having that dialogue, leaning on the discipline that I've created, in my life. And hopefully those are habits that are healthy habits, right? Everybody talks about stress eating or stress drinking or, those types of things, but those aren't necessarily good for you. And I don't know that they necessarily drag you out of the stress. They, in my opinion, drive you deeper into it. How can we create those healthy habits, right? For me, when I feel stress, it's about movement. There's two things that happen. And if you're a stress eater or a stress drinker, two things that you can do. The first cabinet that you go to is where your glassware is, and you pour yourself a glass of water. Because most of the time your body is dehydrated. Your brain needs fluid to operate. Your body needs water to operate. And the second is to go for a walk and move. Right? And get that blood flowing, get your body functioning the way it's supposed to function. Doing those two things for me helped me immensely.
Just a layer on top of that, something you said that I think is really important is just letting people know where you're at, having those conversations to let people know where you're at, and being honest with yourself about where you're at. I've got two buddies that I was having a conversation with yesterday morning, and the topic of stress came up. So it's no shock that this is a good topic for a podcast, because you and I have talked about it. I heard it from a couple of guys, and the topic of stress came up, and both of them are in situations where they've either stepped out of one job and into a new job, or they're 4 months into a new job and it's proving to be stressful. And one of them brought up, like, his wife asked him, you seem stressed. Like, I can tell by your body language that you're stressed out. And his go-to was, no, I'm not. I'm good. I'm good. And then when he stopped and he thought about it and tried to get a little bit more aware of where he was at, he realized, like, okay, if she's seeing it, I probably am. And he dug into it, and he was able to have a conversation with her about, yeah, okay, here I am a little bit stressed. Here's what's going on. I think two things in that. I think our go-to is always to ignore the fact that we're stressed and act like we're not stressed, which doesn't work. And then to not talk about the fact that we're stressed with anybody. Like, we're going to pack that all down and hold it in and pretend like it's not there, which never works. I mean, do that long enough and that's going to explode like a hand grenade in your living room kind of thing. So,
I'm pretty confident that your inner circle and those that, that are around you, your spouses and your good friends, business partners, etc. Like, they know, we all know each other pretty well, right? You see the signs, right? And when your wife, who's your spouse, your trusted confidant, asks you if you're stressed and you try to play it off as, no, everything's good. Like, again, that's a sign, right? Somebody that says, oh, it's all good, but your body language and everything else is telling a different story. Like, if you're in that inner circle and somebody says that, like, dig into it a little bit more. Seek to understand from those people that are dealing with that, right? This isn't just about our own stress. This is about how we can help others through their stress. Dig into those questions and asking, and have that dialogue, and create an environment, right? Create that safe environment where you can talk about it, right? Those are your trusted people. You should be able to have that kind of dialogue. And if you don't, then you need to change your circle, but that's a whole nother topic.
But to your point, you got to find people you can have those conversations with, and a circle of people who aren't going to judge you for being stressed. Because there's some people that will try and BS their way around it, like, oh, I'd never get stressed, which is an absolute lie. I have yet to meet anybody who doesn't get stressed from time to time. There's a lot of people who don't know how to handle the stress and don't have tools or people in place to help them walk through it. But we all experience it, big ways, small ways. Some days it's something massive, and some days it's a million paper cuts, but we're all in it. So.
Well, it's funny how stress has a way of finding the weakness, right? If you've had an injury, or you've got, something that's been bothering you, something, a joint out of place or something, man, that stress has a tendency to find that and exploit it in a real hurry. It can be those physical symptoms. It can be irritability and anger and fatigue and muscle pain and digestive issues and difficulty sleeping. And guess what? I experienced all of those over the last 48 hours. Every one of them. And I'm thankful to be out the other side of it. But man, when you're in it, holy shit, that's dark. And you start wondering, am I ever going to get out of this? And that's where that persistence that you start to spiral down into, if you don't have the discipline, the people that you can talk to, the discipline, the movement to deal with it, that can head you right down that path of having the anxiety. Right? The stress is going to happen, right? How we deal with that is the most important piece. You've got to find a way to get out of that stress, to get your body out of that motion, to get your mind out of that process and get it onto something different.
Well, and just to go there for a second, for anybody who's listening to this, like you and I were talking about it, and yours came and went in a couple of days. There's other people who the stress comes and it doesn't go, and it's persistent and it sticks. And now a couple of days turns into a week, or it turns into a month, and it turns into anxiety. And there's a point at which you have to reach out for some additional help. So there's that piece of it too. This stress comes in and out, and we can go through a stressful week or a stressful couple of days. That's one thing. There's a whole other layer to this where it gets bad, and you do have to like look for some other options and some other ways to talk about it and deal with it and address it. So,
but if I didn't have those people in my inner circle to lean on, to let them know and be transparent and be open and honest with them and not be judged, yeah, it likely would have continued on longer. But because of those people, because of my ability also to move my body, move it out, move that stress out of my body, that I was able to short circuit it and shorten the duration.
it's interesting how the body reacts to stress. Part of that conversation the other day was the stress makes me, when I come home from work, I come home and I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do anything. I want to sit on the couch and watch TV. And I kind of just want to veg out because I don't have energy for anything else. The stress kind of takes it all away. I get through my day at work and there's nothing left in the tank. And my body feels it, like I'm sore, I'm tired. I'm kind of burnt out. That was part of that conversation. And it's interesting how the body reacts to stress. So to your point, if you can push back against that and say, I'm going to drink some water, I'm going to move, I'm going to have some activity, sometimes even when it doesn't feel good or it doesn't feel like you want to do it anyway, have the discipline, do it anyway. That's one of the ways you can get unstuck.
It's weird how your body reacts to that, right? You would think it would be the opposite, right? It would, that movement would cause you more pain, more stress, but it doesn't. Somehow it just pushes it out. And I think part of that is, because you have the discipline to do that, if that is something that you create on a constant, now your body goes, oh, hey, yeah, I know. I remember what this is like, right? This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? When you're stressed, don't skip going to the gym. Actually lean into it.
That's the time to go for sure. That's your mind is going to tell you one thing. Your mind's going to tell you stay home. But if you go anyway, you're going to feel good that you went. You're going to feel good that you put the energy in, and it gives you one more step out of the hole rather than sitting in the hole and going deeper.
Right. We talk all about that. But there's also this thing that your body does need rest. For me, a lack of sleep over a number of days added up, impacted me pretty hard. Finally was able to get some sleep last night, and I feel 100% better because of it. And I think part of why that happened for me is that I was able to talk out those things yesterday, talk out those things that I was dealing with, have those conversations, which allowed me to actually shut down and get good sleep last night. Let's not undervalue the value of sleep.
And oftentimes those moments where we can verbally unpack where we're at with the people in our circle, release it to where we can sleep. Because now we've dealt with it. We've put it out there and we're not holding it in so tight. We let it go. We release it. Now we can sleep. We're not carrying it around the way we were. and you and I talked about this a little bit, like having those good people in your circle, like for both of us, we have awesome business partners. Like running a business, super freaking stressful. Like anyone who thinks it's easy is wrong. Like it's one of the most stressful things you can possibly do. Comes with some freedom, but not the kind of freedom people think when they think of entrepreneurs. It's a stressful place to be. And if you've got really good business partners like we both have, that gives you that opportunity and that place to vent the stress and have those back and forth conversations that you need.
Yeah, I would say that having people in your circle and having good business partners makes that situation much less stressful. Is there stress that comes along with it? Absolutely. Are there stressful situations? Yep. If you've got good people with you that help you through it and that you help through it, you can make that situation much less stressful. Right? It doesn't have to be this big overbearing thing. It can be, but the key is to shorten that duration, right? It's to take those peaks and valleys and even them out. Right? We all experience peaks and valleys throughout the course of the year, throughout the course of our life, right? I mean, you look at that, everybody's seen that picture, right? The path to success is not a straight line. You're going to fall down, you're going to slide backwards, you're going to circle around, you're going to hit a high, you're going to drop off to a low, right? It's a squiggly line back and forth all around to get you there. How do we even that out as much as possible? That's what we're talking about here. Finding those things that work for you.
I'm gonna take this down this entrepreneur path for a second because I think it's a good example. I think there are stresses in our lives that are, I don't want to call them good stresses, but that the stress is brought about by good things. So that path of being an entrepreneur and running a business, and take this whatever direction you want, the path of being a marathon athlete or going to the gym or whatever it is that you're going to do, where you're going to stretch yourself. In those areas where we stretch ourselves and we put out big goals and we've got some things we want to accomplish, there's going to be stress that gets brought along because of those situations we're putting ourselves into. So I don't, like I said, I don't want to call it good stress, but there's stress that gets caused by good things as we're growing and we're flexing muscles that we've never used before, and we're learning and we're failing. I mean, like, how many times in business have you failed? And it's stressful to fail. It's also where we learn a ton. My biggest learnings in Orange Ball, and I guarantee you're going to say this about Octalion, the biggest things we've learned in our businesses come from failure. And failure is freaking stressful. It's hard. But there's some good things that can come out of stress if we manage it the right way.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, right? That is the absolute key. There's stress in any situation, right? And it will consume you. And that's what we're talking about here, right? Don't let the stress consume you. Figure out how to short circuit it, how to shorten that duration, how to get through that stress faster, right? Because once that stress hits and the more you start, just grinding on it in your head, the worse it gets. We need to deal with it. We need to flush that out. We need to move on. Right? We talk about that in dealing with successes and failures, right? Every success, every failure, 24 hours. Give yourself 24 hours to deal with it. Celebrate it. Win or loss. Success or failure. Celebrate it. 24 hours and move on. So again, it's creating these ways to deal with that stuff. And yeah, there are times, man, where you forget those things that you've created and those ways of dealing with it, and you fall on your ass. There are times it's going to be overwhelming at times. It happens, right? Happens to all of us. If you tell me it doesn't, I'm going to call you a liar. But being able to be resilient and dig back out of that is the key, right? Resilience is key. Resilience in our own body's ability, in our mind's ability, in our businesses. Resilience is key. And it's having those processes, having having that discipline that we can lean back on to get us through that. So yeah, stress, good or bad, it doesn't really matter. You still got to work through it.
And I think part of it is remembering where you're going and why you're trying to get there. Like I look at, so Christina and I, married with a blended family. Blended family is stressful. Having come out of a divorce, getting remarried, having teenagers, like we've gone through some stress. And there are moments in the middle of the stress, it'd be easy to tip one way or the other. If you didn't remember what you were trying to build, what you were trying to accomplish, why that relationship mattered, it'd be easy to make bad decisions. It'd be easy to have moments where you're like, this is hard. But in those stressful situations, if we remember why we're going through them and what we're trying to build and why it matters, I think that gives us the energy and the strength sometimes to tap into that resilience you were talking about. Be persistent, keep showing up, and keep moving through the stress rather than getting stuck in it or letting it control us.
We've been talking since the beginning of this podcast about health and fitness as a major component of what has allowed us to navigate things and build this magnetic life, right? And it really is no different than with stress. It, again, what we're dealing with and how we're getting through that comes back to taking care of our bodies, right? Allowing your mind and your body to work together. Eating correctly, getting sleep, getting water, exercise, avoiding those things like alcohol and tobacco, and focusing on the healthy part of driving forward, right? With our bodies and our minds. Without a healthy body, it's hard to navigate a lot of this stuff. It's got to be a core and a focus.
I mean, you just think about that for a second. Without the healthy body, the stress comes, and if you're not healthy, you're already feeling like crap. You're tired, your energy levels are low, you're sluggish, you're probably not getting sleep, you're not fueling yourself with any of the right stuff. So now when something stressful comes at you, you're completely unprepared.
Well, you don't know whether it's stress or not, or if that's just normal. And if it's just normal and you're dealing with that stress on a daily basis, does that lead to the anxiety? I'm not a doctor. I don't know the answer to that, but I got to believe so. Right? If we're trying to create success in our lives and in our businesses and in our relationships, where does that start? It starts with me. It starts with the individual. I got to get my own shit right. I've got to get right, and I've got to have processes and discipline to deal with the challenges that I'm faced with. Right? We talk about that a lot in our business, right? Part of the information security triad is availability. That is about business continuity and resiliency of your business. I have to have processes to work through. If I get hit with a ransomware attack and my business is down and I need time to recover from an IT perspective, I still have business to do. I still have payroll to get out. I still have customers to service. I've got to have workaround procedures. I've got to have the discipline to document that stuff so that when the event happens, I can lean back on it and have the process to go through and get through this thing and continue to thrive as a business versus fail. It's no different with our personal lives.
But I think I'm gonna go here for a second. We've talked in the past about businesses who they know ransomware could happen, but they're not doing anything to prepare for it. And then they're shocked when it comes, right? Take the personal life side. We know stress could happen. I'll take that a step further. We know stress is going to come our way, but we don't put anything in place to prepare ourselves for when it arrives. And then we're shocked dumbfounded when something causes us to be stressed. When some stressful event hits, we're completely unprepared, and then we don't know how to react. Like, part of this stress conversation is, if you're not in a stressful scenario today, you need a reality check that there's one coming. Like, you can't get away from it. They're always going to show up. You got to be able to be prepared for it and have a plan for when something stressful does come. What am I going to do? Same as the ransomware attack. It's not any different. The thing that's really similar between both of them is we keep kicking the can down the road and hoping it's not going to happen to us, even though it probably will.
Right. And then when you don't have that plan, it takes longer to recover. It takes longer to recover. And what we're talking about here is shortening that time, making it as short as possible, lessening the pain as much as possible. Finding ways to deal with that, right? As we've said this, right? We all have stress in our life. We're all going to have those stressful moments. There are times where the stress is going to feel unsurmountable. Having ways to deal with it and how you can manage through that effectively is the key.
I think the big thing, as we start to land the plane here a little bit, one of the big takeaways from this, and I'm not good at it, so this is important for me as we walk out of this conversation, is in the middle of those stressful moments, when you're aware that the stress is starting to build a little bit, communicating that to other people and not just carrying it yourself. Like, I love to try and carry the load by myself and not say anything. And it lengthens how long I'm in the stress because I'm not asking for help. And I'm not being honest with myself or with people around me. So I think that's my big takeaway from this, is communicate it more quickly. And then when I've got people, like, say it's Christina, and she's like, hey, if you seem a little stressed, what's going on? Just being honest about it. Yeah, I am. Here's where I'm at. That transparency piece, I think, is key for me.
You have those people in your life for a reason. Right? We're in this together. Having a circle of people that you can lean on, you can bounce ideas off of, you can share with them how you're feeling. Sometimes you don't need answers, you just need to share it. Find those relationships, lean on those relationships, and be open when other people want to share. Right? This is a two-way street, man. When you see people in that situation and you know they're struggling, dig into it a little more.
Just a simple check-in, the simple ask, hey, how you doing? I just wanted to check in. I just wanted to see where you're at. I thought of you today. Let's talk. There's nothing complicated about it. There's no special script. It's just ask. And most of the time, that person you're asking is going to really appreciate it and be glad that you noticed.
Right on. So you know what to do. Make it a great day and get after it.
Another good conversation, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That wraps it up for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of the Grit Meets Growth tribe. And thanks for growing along with us and being part of this journey together. If you know someone who needs to hear the conversation we had today, please share it. If you got something out of this conversation, please leave us a review. And finally, if you want to make sure you don't miss future episodes, just remember to subscribe. We're thankful for each and every one of you. And as my co-host and good friend Chris Cathers always says, make it a great day.